Hey everybody, thanks for joining us with our live coverage. Can you believe yet again we are here live with another hurricane update? This is Hurricane Zeta for those of you keeping score, and it's kind of hard to keep score as we continue to roll through the Greek alphabet, but we're expected to see Zeta make an impact across the northern Gulf Coast in the U.S. by Wednesday. So we're going to continue to offer these live updates for you between now and the duration of landfall, and then even after that we'll have some updates as well. A couple things we want to let you know about that. It is expected to move right over the Yucatan Peninsula within the next few hours. It's just about 30 miles or so off the coast of the Yucatan, and then expected to move into the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow. So we're going to get into all that, let you know what you can expect across the lower 48, and try and unpack some of the logic and reasoning behind why the northern Gulf Coast is getting another strike of another tropical cyclone. That's the $64,000 question. But what I want to do first is I want to begin with the app, and a couple of things I've got toggled on. Of course, we have the high definition radar toggled on. I'm going to adjust that light a little bit because it looks like it's a little bright. So there we go. So we have a couple things turned on. We have the high def radar, we have the wind layer turned on, and we also have the hurricane tracker turned on. So I'll show you the hurricane tracker real quick because this is a paid upgrade and you don't need this to track tropical cyclones, but of course I'd like to show it to you. A couple interesting features here. The National Hurricane Center thinks that Zeta will move off the U.S. coast, make landfall Wednesday, and be off the United States coast in about 4 days from right now. So it's expected to race across the eastern half of the country in the course of these next 4 days. So it's going to be a fast moving system, kind of shooting out of the Gulf like a cannon almost, up into the Gulf Coast, making landfall, and then this cold front steering it very quickly back towards the southeastern U.S. But let me take off the hurricane tracker layer because then we can take a look at the wind layer a little more clearly here. And just to get your bearings, so Cozumel is right where that big red blob is. So just right smack dab on top of Cozumel is Zeta, and then of course it will move into the Yucatan Peninsula through the overnight tonight, causing flash floods and mudslides. Unfortunately, of course, it's dark there. A lot of folks will not be able to see the flooding conditions. That will be a big problem there. And then expected to move into the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow, where we could see it re-strengthen. Now, of course, a couple of things we expect to happen. It's going to get a little weaker as it moves over land tonight and into tomorrow. It might drop down to a strong tropical storm again. We'll just have to wait and see. And then it's expected to get back into that hurricane status as it gets into those very warm Gulf Ocean temperatures as we head into the next couple of days. So Matt, let's show some of that video out of Cozumel. We had some video that we grabbed off of Twitter, and you can see that there was a lot of rough seas already. Of course, with a landfalling tropical cyclone, you're going to get bad weather, and the seas were anywhere from 7 to 10 feet off the coast of Cozumel. They have of course been under hurricane warning there, and the conditions will of course deteriorate through tonight as it makes its landfall, crosses the peninsula rather, and moves into the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow. And then we also have some video from NOAA, the hurricane hunters, of course, flying their recon missions in and out of Zeta. This was from the Gulfstream, one of the aircrafts, the high altitude jets that flies into the tropical cyclones. And you can see this time lapse here, and it was of course showing off in the distance some of the clouds, and they'll continue these recon missions throughout the day tomorrow. And once it gets a little closer to the U.S., they'll ramp up those flights probably a little bit more. We'll see how that all plays out. So let's go back over to WSI, and we'll kind of zoom in and unpack some of this stuff that's going on with Zeta. So we saw a burst of energy today, a burst of strengthening. It's not a rapid intensification, but some certainly defined strengthening this morning. You can see down on the lower right-hand side of your screen, that was from this morning. And then as it moves towards the northwest, you can see kind of a little less concentric or circular formation to those thunderstorms. We certainly saw a peak in that strong winds earlier in the day today, but now that it's starting to interact with land, then we're going to start to see some of the organized features of Zeta start to get a little less defined, of course, as it interacts with Mexico. So some of the banding features that were clearly evident are still there. Let me grab my pointing tool, and we'll take a quick look here. But it's, again, just a little less noticeable. Actually, wait, hang on one sec. That's the wrong thing. Let's see here. See if I can find it. We have well, no, that's not going to do it either. Okay, let me bypass that, and then we'll come back to that one. But I wanted to at least show you that some of the stronger thunderstorms that were kind of centered around the big central dense overcast, which is what we call when you see that big black blob there. That's on the lower right hand side of your screen. As it got a little closer towards Mexico, that became a little less organized. But we do expect that to regenerate as we get into tomorrow. So the winds officially have been holding right around 80 miles an hour. And as we head into tonight, we're going to expect to see similar conditions, of course, so we could likely see some of that weakening. There's the information from the National Hurricane Center, the pressure at 983 and the movement northwest at 12. So Zeta has been rotating on the south and the southwest side of a ridge of high pressure, which is expected to continue to pretty much control its movement over these next couple of days. So there's my pointer. So as we head into tonight, we're going to see that northwest movement crossing over the channel and then moving up into the central Gulf of Mexico. And then, of course, the big question is, where does it come in at? It's just almost seems surreal, doesn't it? That yet again, we've got another Louisiana landfall, it looks like, by Wednesday from the National Hurricane Center, their forecast track. So the track there been pretty similar these last couple of runs. And then you can see as it races off through the mid-Atlantic states, going to be off the coast of the northeastern U.S. by Friday, but expected to actually move offshore sometime on Thursday. So it's going to be extremely fast moving, and it is going to be something to see for the record books. I mean, I don't know if this will break any records, but it's really going to be crossing a big chunk of geography in a short period of time. So the National Hurricane Center issued hurricane watches for the U.S. coast at 5 o'clock today. There's also tropical storm watches for those areas shaded in yellow, and likely we will see those upgraded to hurricane warnings when we get within 24 hours to 36 hours of landfall along the U.S. I don't expect those to change too much. I think the Hurricane Center's got a lock on this one. The models have been pretty consistent with this particular hurricane, and they weren't in the beginning initializing very well. That's not unusual, but we've seen some consistency here, and I think that we probably won't see a big deviation in the forecast track. So a couple of things. First, I'm going to show you the wind radii product. So you can see the legend at the top. The red is the area that are the hurricane force winds. The orange is the areas that are 57 to 73 miles per hour. And the yellow is 39 to 57. So crosses over Mexico, moves into the Gulf, and then this is going to stop here in a second. So on this particular pass, or at least on this timeline, it looks like we could see a landfall sometime after dinner on Wednesday night. So I'm going to scrub this back a little bit, my timeline a little bit here. And actually, it's not going to let me do it. Well, I'm not sure why it's not letting me do it. But anyways, you can see that, 8:30 Wednesday, we would be talking about a good chunk of southwestern Louisiana near Houma and near Sulphur. Port Sulphur, by the way, expected to probably get the largest storm surge, which at this point, the Hurricane Center thinks would be around 6 feet. We could see that modify a little bit. We're going to get a little better forecast on the storm surge for sure as we get into tomorrow. There is storm surge watches for this part of the U.S. and Louisiana right now, as a matter of fact. And then it moves through southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and then quickly out towards the northeastern U.S. Here's a look at the computer models. Again, as I said, they weren't doing a great job, but so far they've been relatively consistent. You can see a huge cluster of them right over Louisiana. And a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about why we think we're getting another Louisiana landfall when we get to the water vapor. So let me get past this and we'll go over to the water vapor and we'll talk about that in just a second. But there's the models, again, doing a pretty decent job. So another feature that we've been talking to you guys an awful lot about is sea surface temperatures. And that's a big player in determining just how high the winds are how warm the sea surface is. And when I toggle on some of these numbers, 86, 89, down in the some of the warmest waters that you will find in the Atlantic Basin are right here in the Gulf of Mexico. But look up here, as we get up into the northern Gulf, they start to go down just a little bit. And we've talked about this as well, that these are just slight changes, slight drops in the temperatures, but it's just enough that actually can interact and play a role in the amount of energy or heat that this hurricane is likely to hold on to. So it's kind of like when you're bottling, you're trying to, bottle all this energy in a bottle, so to speak, or into some type of cup, and you unscrew the lid of the bottle, and some of that energy escapes and some of that heat escapes. It's kind of the same premise here. So you don't need just the slight changes, even if you unscrew a top of a Coke bottle or a Pepsi bottle, whatever your drink of choice is, when you unscrew that, you can hear the release of the pressure. Even though we're not talking about pressure here, we're talking about just a little slight change in the temperature, and the ocean can play a big role in how much energy that this tropical cyclone can absorb or use. So just these slight variations from a few degrees. Remember, it's over warm waters now that are about 89 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's going to be moving into 84 degrees Fahrenheit in about 2 days. So that's about a 5-degree temperature difference. Doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it actually is. So we do think that that's going to play a role in some of the strengthening or the lack thereof of Zeta as it approaches the U.S. We also believe that there's going to be some southwest wind shear that's going to be coming out ahead of the cold front that's going to help steer Zeta quickly over the U.S. So I'll show you that as well in just a second. So let's show you the recon data. This was from earlier this afternoon. They were flying in there. They had a flight wind of about 71 miles an hour. That was, I think this was around 3 or 4 o'clock today. I didn't double check before we started the stream, so I apologize, but I believe it was around 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon. And of course, they'll be in and out of Zeta several more times between now and landfall. But this always is a great resource for us to use. Lets us know barometric pressure. We can know the size of the diameter of the eye as well. I don't have that on here right now, but I just have the winds and the barometric pressure. But there's all kinds of really, really useful information that we can use. And by the way, hurricane force winds extend out about 15 miles from the center of Zeta, and tropical storm force winds extend out about 115 miles from the center. So a fair amount of tropical storm force winds are expected to move into the eastern half of the country, or at least the southeastern part of the country, when we get into Wednesday and into Thursday. So again, several of our hurricanes and our tropical storms this year have been overnight landfalls. I do think, at least on the current timing, Zeta is going to make a landfall sometime on Wednesday night. But look at this. This is I stopped the clock at 12:55 a.m. Thursday morning, and still dealing with hurricane force winds through much of southwestern Louisiana. On this path, this would be more trouble for Louisiana, of course, and Lake Pontchartrain moving right over the lake before it moves into southern Mississippi. So again, that's a problem because people are sleeping. They may not have their phones turned on with notifications that they can easily hear them. If there's weather warnings, or there's, God forbid, there's flash flood warnings where you are and you're sleeping and you don't know about them, that's a dangerous situation. So I hate to see overnight landfalls because they're always more dangerous just by nature of the beast. It's dark out, you can't see. And of course, crews can't get to you when winds are above 39 miles an hour. And then it races very quickly off into the northeastern and the mid-Atlantic part of the country as we get into Thursday and Friday, ahead of this powerful cold front, which again is just going to kind of pick it up on a conveyor belt and shoot it out across the eastern half of the country by the end of the week. So at least, luckily for the U.S., this will not be a long-term player, but it will be a player Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for sure. Lots of people are going to be in the path of Zeta, or at least the leftovers of Zeta, as we head into now and into the next 3 days. Problem is, these exact same areas that got Laura, got Sally, got Beta, got all of these cyclones this year are dealing with yet another similar path to what we've seen. And remember, power lines are still being repaired. Roads are still being worked on, where there's been huge problems in the infrastructure of the roads, and all of the buildings that got sustained so much damage down in Louisiana from Laura. Even though this is not a Hurricane Laura scenario, there's still a lot of work that's being done in the southeast. So it's just unbelievable to see that we are yet again talking about a landfall potential in Louisiana. Okay, so here's a look at the water vapor, and I'll draw some things in just a second, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this because one of the things that I've heard a lot of people ask about is, why is Louisiana in the path of yet another hurricane? What's the reasoning? There's not a specific climatological hook we can put on this, but what I can tell you is this time of the year, in the late October, early November, we start to see series of cold fronts become more regular across the country. They usually pass from the western half of the country over California, across the United States, over to New York in about 6 to 7 days. And those become much more regular in the fall and winter months. That's why we get cold weather more often, obviously, in the winter months. So this time of the year, when we get tropical activity, cold fronts are often a huge player in steering currents and steering mechanisms for tropical cyclones. And that's exactly what has happened this hurricane season. It's just been a series of cold fronts or troughs of low pressure and ridge of high pressures, these two yin and yang, if you will, of these weather phenomena, or not phenomena, but weather features that steer tropical cyclones have been in place for the last several tropical systems that have hit the United States. So we've had several cold fronts that have timed out right about the time a tropical cyclone is making landfall. So remember, the cold front is like a big bulldozer in the atmosphere. So it's pushing these tropical features to turn north away from them. It's like here's our big bulldozer. Here's our tropical cyclone, and it pushes these tropical cyclones towards the north and usually back towards the northeast or away from the cold front. So it's just been timing. It's been bad timing for Louisiana, bad timing for Mississippi, bad timing for southern Alabama, but that's really what it boils down to. So a couple of things that we can draw on here is there's a ridge of high pressure that's been over the United States, and I've got drew it too low, but it's generally in this area. And then we've got two troughs of low pressure that are also a factor in the steering of this. So here's one of the troughs right about here. Oh goodness, let's see. Wait a minute. Nope. Okay, I got to start over. All right, there we go. So let's try this. Come on, there we go. There is one. And then we've got this other frontal boundary kind of right in here, this little impulse. And then our ridge is over here, kind of in that orientation. It's elliptical kind of. It's not certainly a true cylinder or a true circle. But in between that channel is going to be where Zeta heads, so somewhere in this area. So that's why as this frontal boundary pushes towards the east, it's going to start to pull Zeta northward, and then it's going to accelerate it, make it move quicker as it moves into the southeastern United States. So it starts to pick up its forward speed, it picks up its acceleration, but it also loses its potential to cause major rain across the southeast. So that's the upshot to all of this. But when it comes in, we do think it's going to come in with a flash flooding threat, a storm surge threat, and the flooding at this point anywhere from 4 to 8 inches. The threat for storm surge anywhere from, as I mentioned, 2 to 6 feet, maybe 7 feet. It's still a little bit too early to say the exact storm surge number. It's going to depend on tidal times, if it comes in at high tide or low tide. So some of those features still have yet to be played out. But there's a lot of mechanisms that are going on. And take a look at this cold front. I mean, not only do we have this major cold front going on, or this tropical cyclone, but look at all of that freezing rain and that sleet that's moving across Texas's panhandle, New Mexico, as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. And that's a pretty powerful cold front. So this is going to help steer Zeta pretty handily as it moves off towards the east, and then eventually up into the northeastern part of the country. So that's going to be what we'll be watching as we head through now and Friday. And really the go-to days for us are tomorrow. Let me get this back up to the beginning of our loop here. It's really, our go-to days are tomorrow and Wednesday, landfall Wednesday, not Thursday, and then off the coast of the U.S. as early as Thursday night, and then still indirectly impacting the northeastern U.S. as we head into Friday. So it's going to be moving all the way from where it is now over Mexico, make landfall in the U.S., and then get out of here in the next 4 days. So we're talking about a pretty rapidly moving system that, again, lessens its threat in terms of flooding rain, but certainly we can't minimize the threat of the storm surge. And we're still talking about the potential of a Category 1 hurricane. So the hurricane center still vacillating between, that possibility. Anytime you get a tropical cyclone that moves into the central Gulf, it's there's so much warm and there's so much energy there in the Gulf that these systems can feed off of. So that potential could be there for it to have a light to moderate strengthening. Most of the computer models do not pick up on a rapid intensifying cyclone once it gets into the southern Gulf. But because that is the weakest link that I always talk about in forecasting hurricanes, you really have got to stick around and stay tuned to the forecast, because again, there's a lot of things that can happen between now and Wednesday. And anytime a cyclone gets into the Gulf of Mexico, we all kind of hold our collective breaths, because we know the energy that is there to tap into these cyclones that really can be dangerous and can really be something that can cause some even surprises even at this stage of the game. So this was the update from 8 o'clock local time, Eastern time, I should say, and that's where we are. We're in the East Coast. MyRadar is. So as of 8 p.m., the winds were 80 miles an hour, the pressure 983, and it was moving northwest at 12. So I expect it to move northwest as well tomorrow. It probably won't take more of that sharp turn until sometime on Wednesday. So again, it's going to be moving generally towards the northwest, and then we start to see that more of that turn towards the north right on that day of landfall. So Wednesday is really our day that if you're in Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, you've really got to yet again make the preps, because again, you've had so many tropical systems this hurricane season, and there's already repairs that are still ongoing in many parts of southern Louisiana, southern Alabama, southern Georgia, southern Mississippi. So, there really is not a great opportunity for you to get a lot of work done if you have a roof that was compromised from Laura or Sally or Beta or, any of the other tropical cyclones we had this year. So you've got to try to make the precautions now, because we're talking about a landfall here in the U.S. in just a couple of days. So there's that path once more, and then I'll show you the watches and warnings one more time, and then I think we'll take a quick look at the questions and see if there are any. Actually, I'll be looking here too. Let's see. Hey, Sandy's on YouTube saying here we go again. You got that right. And Matt is here with me. Yes, indeedy, Sandy, you know our drill. You know who we got working with here. Cindy on Facebook is saying she had snow outside Chicago. I know it has been such a wild month. I tell you what, it's just unbelievable. Let's see. Poor New Orleans, and Angelica saying poor New Orleans. Isn't that the truth? I just, you just hate to come on here and show this kind of forecast again, because it's just been so wild this hurricane season. We've had so many records, and we likely will at least tie the 2005 hurricane season if we don't break it. We still have another 30 days of official hurricane season, but we've had cyclones that have formed in the month of January. So who knows, you guys, how this is all going to shake out. I would not be surprised if generally boasts more tropical activity. So we'll see if this all plays out. Okay, so I don't see any questions here, at least on the Facebook, YouTube, or on Twitter. So I think we'll just kind of sign off for now. I just wanted to jump on here and let you know that we're tracking everything for you and keeping an update on everything. So for housekeeping for you tomorrow, if you see the notification, you get a notification of a live update. It either will be a meteorologist, or what we've been doing as well is showing you guys our cameras from Surfline, our partners Surfline, who do a tremendous job and help us showing the beach conditions where these hurricanes and tropical storms are headed. So we'll have probably one of those tomorrow morning around 11 a.m. just before lunchtime, and that will also show the graphics. We'll show you some of those as well, and then we'll have another update tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, and then Wednesday we'll ramp up coverage, of course, as we anticipate landfall. So I think that's going to do it for us now, you guys. It's currently 9:45 here in Orlando, Florida, at the MyRadar studios, and I want to thank you guys for joining me and Matt Highland, our production coordinator, for getting you updated on yet another U.S. landfall of a tropical cyclone, a hurricane. I can't believe yet again, here we are, October 26th, and we're going to have another one. But that's just the way it's been. So we'll keep you updated, you guys. I want to thank you again for stopping in and joining us. Hopefully you're not too hurricane weary. I know a lot of people are. But just know that we're watching everything for you, and we will try to keep you updated as well as possible. Okay, that's going to do it for tonight. I hope you guys have a safe and pleasant evening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.